Lucy Lou with my girl Drew.
You're powerful, and just being independent in itself, you come off as being the bitch, but you know, it's just the fact that you're getting your way and you know how to get it done. And I don't, you know, you can call me a bitch if you want to, but when you need to get something done, guess who they call? That would be me.
Bring it.
Question, tell me what you think about me. I buy my own diamonds and I buy my own rings. Only ring your celly when I'm feeling lonely. When it's all over, please get up and leave. Question, tell me how you feel about this. Try to control me, boy, you get dismissed. Pay my own condo and I pay my own bills. Always 50-50 in relation.
Oh, she's a gold digger. Way over town.
A gold digger is simply a woman who gets with a man, whether on a short-term level or, more importantly, for a marriage, just because of his money, status, power, any of the above, success. It's a woman who, instead of putting those efforts and working hard towards getting her own money, she puts all her efforts into getting a man's money. And there are plenty of those here in Houston. Plenty. And actually, sometimes we call them boppers. You know, that's a term that is very much, it's Houston. It's Houston. And there's a lot of women like that down here simply for the fact of, I mean, there's so many athletes who, because the housing is so cheap down here, they all have a house down here. You know, it's a lot of different athletes, celebrities, whoever. And y'all see the girls, but can you see the girls at the club? And, you know, it's sad. It really is, because I really feel if they worked as hard as they did at trying to get those men on a regular job or their own businesses, they would be far more successful. They would have their own money. They wouldn't even have to do that.
Bopping is like a term.
It's a profession.
It's a profession.
They take it serious.
Professional bopper. And they've been bopping for years. I mean, for years. And just start bopping.
You know what? Don't forget, the whole thing is not even necessarily to get married, but to get a kid.
Yeah.
Once you get the kid, they're locked in for 18 years of payments. That's what they know.
It's my name, it's on that tag. So remove your bag, let me call you a cab.
I'm an attorney by day. I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I know how to check criminal records. But I'm serious, I know how to check criminal records, but I can't check family and custody records. And so I ended up with a con artist who would go from state to state to state. He had 3 different babies by 3 different women that I didn't know about. Ended up in my house. I was paying for everything. I bought him a car, everything. I'm about to walk down the aisle with this dude. And 2 months before, that was when stuff just started unraveling and everything. You know, I'm getting letters from women and all this kind of stuff, and he just kept coming up with more and more lies. And, you know, after that, I terminated the wedding and everything. But I've been conned. The car that I had gotten for him, I was driving that car that day. And he had moved, and so he still had boxes and stuff in the trunk, whatever. He had started to move in with me because we were saving money for the wedding. I get out of the car, there's a box, and there's just stuff strewn all across the back of the car. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I'm looking, and I see a picture of a baby. And I said, well, that's not the one that I know about, because I knew about one. I didn't know about the one. I said, well, that's a little boy, that's not a little girl. So then I started pulling the papers, and I looked in the box, and there's this little boy, and then there's like pictures rolling up, pictures like through the years, pictures, and then there's pleadings. And pleadings are documents that you file with the court. So that would be something that I would recognize and I would definitely understand. And on there, he had an affidavit where he acknowledged that this was his son. And this was a different state, different woman, whatever. So I walked into my house. Like I said, I didn't know whether to scream, I didn't know where to cry, I didn't know where to do. But in between all this, I had already found out he was messing with somebody else, he was doing all this other stuff, and I had forgiven him for everything. I was like, okay, we're still gonna make this work, we love each other, we're gonna be a family. But this was just whatever, I couldn't take it anymore. I went up there and I went up into my room and I looked at him and I said, okay, I need to talk to you. And I said, baby, whose child is this? And, you know, he just started backpedaling. And that was when I canceled the wedding. And I almost had to call the cops to get him out of my house then.
You down cause he said you was too tall for him? That wasn't love, baby girl, you was dreaming. I could have killed you when you said your seed was growing from his seed.
When we first met, people say you'll know when you meet the one. I had that moment, and he had that moment. So it was special for both of us. It lasted for 2 years. Then I got pregnant, and in fact, I consider my child a miracle baby. I got thyroid cancer. Both my surgeon and my OB didn't want me to go through with the pregnancy. It was too high risk. Could be born with mental retardation. But my mate was like, yeah, let's do this, you know, we'll have a family, we're perfect for each other anyway. You know, I can't wait to hear the pitter-patter of your feet, you know, waddling naked, or not naked, sorry, waddling pregnant. So I went through with it, you know, despite the doctor's concerns, and it all went downhill from there. It's been, I've always considered myself a very strong woman, and unfortunately I feel like I'm the shreds of the woman that I used to be. But I'm on the ascend up, you know, to become, again, the woman that I am, the one that I let myself be lost in this man's world. And, so it all ended a few weeks ago. I had to call the cops out again, and you know, I've called the cops before, turned violent, and I left. I left with my child, and then I went to the doctor and found out my cancer was back, and then it all put me back in that same place. But to me, I could deal with the put-downs, I could deal with the physical violence, I could deal with all of that, but for my child who's only 2 years old, I didn't want him to be around that. In fact, things escalated when he finally pointed a gun at me, and I was holding my child. I'm like, okay, you got to go. I got to go. I gotta run now.
She really, oh gosh, bless her heart. I just feel so bad that she was in such a bad relationship, but to have gone through something where there's any kind of physical violence, I don't relate to that at all. Because if a man ever in any way tried to touch me, baby, it would be a problem.
Girls talk about the booty too, about the way your brother is hanging to a woman, didn't think nobody.
Oh my God, I could never have a man with a little dick. That is terrible, that's horrible. And she was just tearing a man down with a small piece. And I said, well, it's not his fault that he was born that way. It's not their fault. You know what I mean? That they're born that way. Maybe your vagina's too big. That's not the word I use. So maybe you have so many dicks up in you that you are a dick ruler. You know what I mean? If you haven't been with so many, I'm being blunt, I'm sorry, I'll bleep that out. But if you haven't been with so many of them, then you really wouldn't know what size it was. You know what I mean? Because I look at it from a point of view, and that's from a wisdom part from where I'm at my age. Because at one time I did think that size mattered. However, I did have men in my life that were small, and I worked it out. I worked it out.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you a story. There was this guy that I dated, it was a long time ago, and he could have been LL Cool J's twin brother. The man was phenomenally gorgeous. Nice, cool, everything's good. On paper, wonderful. He drops his pants one day. You see this right here? There's nothing I can do with that. Like in my opinion, and then on the flip side, you don't want nobody that's working with like, you know, a 2-liter, you know what I'm saying? You want like a nice, in my personal opinion, I like a good medium large size, you know, medium to medium large is good for me because in that way, like if it's too big, then you can't do everything like that. Sure. And then if it's too small, I mean, you can't do nothing with it.